I'm Austin Prey, senior reporter here at Payments. Joining me today is Kojin Oshiba, the co-founder at end-to-end AI security company, Robust Intelligence. Thanks for joining us today, Kojin.
No, thank you for having me.
And it's an exciting, we're here for Payments new series, the AI Effect. And that's where we talk to, founders, innovators, pioneers, academics, kind of about the impact of artificial intelligence, particularly at the intersection of payments and digital transformation, but also kind of, outside those in areas that are adjacent and kind of exciting as well. And so diving right into the topic, artificial intelligence as it's popularly used, particularly today, it's a broad term. There's a lot going on there. Generative artificial intelligence is just kind of, one new, you know, phase shift within kind of a broader field. And kind of, from your perspective, what is so different about the generative capabilities of today versus some of the more automated machine learning and intelligent solutions of yesteryear, particularly as it relates to a security or risk management perspective?
I see that there are three things that are very different about generative AI applications today. So one is that obviously it's generative, and what it means is that it not only classifies things into, for example, fraud or not fraud, but generates diverse content, right? It can generate different types of text, responses to people, responses to customers. And when that happens, there's so many ways in which models can behave, not just, 0 or 1 or fraud or not fraud, or, so that leaves room for a lot of risks and a lot of security issues potentially. And it's much harder to control because there are literally infinite patterns that can come out of these models. So the generative nature of the model is number one. Number two is a lot of these applications are real time. So if you think about ChatGPT, right, it's not like, you ask a question and then you wait a day and you get a response. You get a response immediately, right? So whereas in traditional applications, for example, let's say if you're forecasting demand, then maybe you can do that every month or every week to think about the demand for the upcoming week or month. So that is a huge difference because for risk management, because the fact that the response is happening in real time means that it's really hard to have human in the loop. So in traditional machine learning, people think about human in the loop as a way to assure quality of these models, but that's so much harder to do in the new paradigm. And the last piece I'd mention is who's exposed to this, right? So again, in traditional ML has been people with PhD or well-trained data scientists that were touching these models. But today, everyone can go and sign up on ChatGPT or any generative AI and start using. But what that means from a security risk management perspective is people who might not be well familiar with the risks and potential vulnerabilities of these models can just use them in whatever ways. So there needs to be a lot more rigor around process for security and risk management there.
And when it comes to the kind of the technical readiness, the data readiness, the kind of resource readiness of firms looking to, either one, use artificial intelligence, and two, to use it safely. Um, how would you rate most companies on a scale of 1 to 10?
Last year in 23, obviously initially it was 0, right? Like people just ChatGPT just came out and we didn't know what to do. I think we got to a point where internally within enterprises, companies are trying to unlock these generative AI tools for their employees and team members to use. So in that sense, let's say like 2 to 3, right, out of 10 in terms of enabling internal people to leverage generative AI. I think what's changing this year that would bring the score up from, let's say, like 3 to 6 or 7 is going from internal use cases to external use cases. And so, for example, if you think about a bank, then you can have your own people summarize certain reports or write email responses. And those things can be very beneficial for automating and making your internal processes efficient. But if you think about your end users and supporting customer success or helping with financial information knowledge sharing, and all these are use cases that can be very, very good. But at the same time, there are a lot more risks that you need to overcome in order for you to do that. So bridging that gap from internal use of generative AI to the external use of generative AI, I think is what will bump up the score this year. And then hopefully at the end of the year, we're going to get to a state where a lot of enterprises are being able to leverage Gen AI applications for external use cases.
What are the main threats that AI systems and the organizations, you know, deploying them face, or that they could face? You know, kind of what are the threats right now, and what do you see as kind of, you know, having some of them being some of the most urgent areas to focus on around the corner?
From our customers and the enterprise companies that we talk to, we see two different themes that are urgent. So one is about data and not leaking data, especially sensitive data, and that's been on top of mind for almost everyone that we talk to, and that is because this is actually another characteristic of generative AI is it's connected to a lot more diverse data sources than traditional AI applications. Traditional applications could only process maybe, let's say, like CSVs and some relational data, whereas generative AI can consume like PDFs, emails, recordings, like images, and it can produce all sorts of different data sources in different places. But the flip side of that is that, you know, based on different types of prompts or the way you architect the application, that can leave room for a lot of potential data extraction type attacks or unintended data leakage. So that is problem number one that a lot of people that we talked to and a lot of our customers are facing today. Problem number two is the supply chain risk of AI. So we see this in two ways. We see a lot of customers, vendors using AI applications, for example. And so, you know, if you're a bank, then traditionally you'd have IT risk checks on the software vendor supply chain. But now the same thing is happening for AI. You never know what your startup vendor is, let's say, using behind the scenes and in terms of generative AI and whether that is safe or not, right? So there's a huge risk of vendor supply chain when it comes to AI features. And this also applies to open source. We're also seeing a lot of companies not just leveraging ChatGPT and other types of third-party commercial applications, but also there are a lot of very strong open source models nowadays, like Llama 2 or Mistral. But you know, when they use them, they essentially come from unknown sources, right? Like in the case of Llama 2, you might know it might be from Facebook, but oftentimes there's this platform called Hugging Face, which is like GitHub, but for AI. And there are literally like hundreds of thousands of models that you can leverage, but you never know where they come from. And we've seen when we scan them, we've identified a lot of vulnerabilities. So being able to make sure that there's no risk in the supply chain, both for commercial and open source applications, that would be critical as well.
Awesome. Yeah, great answer. And you know, when it comes to this idea of end-to-end security of an AI system, you know, at what point do enterprises need to, you know, step in and engage, you know, a firm like Robust Intelligence? You know, is there a handoff period, or, you know, kind of companies can handle this internally, or the use case doesn't necessarily, you know, merit this sort of, you know, protection measures that other use cases might? And then kind of a second part question, you know, is AI security kind of a one size fits all exercise? Is it a single use? Is it repeatable? Is it kind of, you know, is every protection program or, you know, cyber hygiene initiative bespoke? Just kind of, what's your perspective? And yeah, I guess those are the questions.
An important thing to understand is what are the problems that our customers are facing today. And I think this is there's a difference that we see between cybersecurity and AI security. I think in cybersecurity, CISOs know the different kind of components of cybersecurity, right? Like, okay, database security, network security, like email security. And for each, we need this kind of solution because we have these problems. Whereas in AI security, where we are today is, so what are the components of AI security, and what do we need to have for each? So even the landscape of different types of risks and solutions needed, that's unclear. So the take we have is that we need essentially an end-to-end platform that would cover up for the different types of potential threats and vulnerabilities that can come up, and can almost be a partner for CISOs and risk organizations and AI organizations, to able to give them the peace of mind when building AI applications. And I think this is both for internal as well as external applications. One thing that we're seeing a lot is, even with internal applications, there are like existing cybersecurity threats that can be leveraged with LLM vulnerabilities. So there are new threat vectors through for phishing and for data exfiltration. All these very classic cybersecurity threats, you see them coming up in a very new way because people are developing AI applications internally. So these are all things that are coming up, and having a partner that you can work on as this kind of end-to-end kind of a security expert, that is extremely important.
In a recent report, the U.S. I'm gonna have to actually look up what the National Institute of Standards and Technology, a government, federal agency. They put together a report saying that there are theoretical problems with securing AI algorithms that simply haven't been solved yet, and that available defenses kind of lack a sort of guaranteed assurance that they fully mitigate kind of all these risks. What are if you've read the report, or kind of, I believe, Robust, you contributed to it, correct?
That's right. That's right.
Okay, so what are some of the security gaps that you see being closed soon, and what might pose a little more of a challenge, kind of at least in the near term?
Yeah, great question. So first of all, like on that point, we work very closely with different organizations like NIST, and also another one famous in cybersecurity is MITRE, which creates CVE, which is like a data source of all common vulnerabilities out there. And so generally we work with a lot of these organizations to think about the taxonomy and what are the upcoming threats. And one thing that I think we're tackling now is model security. So security of the model itself. But where there's a lot of gap is application security for AI, right? Protecting, at the end of the day, we're all building an AI application, and we're not just using a model binary, right? So if we think about the risks and security of this model on its own, then there's starting to be more work done in this space that would lead to more secure, more trustworthy models that are being developed. On the other hand, for AI application security, there's still a lot more work that needs to be done, especially around, let's say you take a model, and there's a common technique in generative AI now called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. And the idea is like you connect model to different data sources, like a pile of PDFs or email information, and you ask this generative AI model, LLM, to kind of get answers from these data sources. But in that case, what you need is not only the security of this model, but also, okay, so you're now connecting this with different data sources. Won't there be some injection here, data poisoning here that's happening that can lead the model to be fooled, or all these types of risks that can exist because of having, due to the nature of having end-to-end applications. Those are the types of risks that are not only untackled, but also very practically relevant. Because at the end of the day, as I said, you're building an application, not just having this single model.
Awesome. And then, maybe moving briefly over from the private sector to the public sector, what's the role that you believe regulation should play when it comes to ensuring secure AI? Is this use case dependent? Is it foundation model dependent? Kind of where's the best way for, a productive policy to have a positive impact?
I think it ties back to the problem I mentioned earlier about each company not exactly knowing what AI security is and what to do about them. And these more public organizations have this place of they can set the standards for the rest of the organizations to follow, right? So if I think about NIST, for example, that it's fantastic that NIST created the AI risk management framework last year, which is also included, referenced in the executive order. And now they're trying to make that even more concrete. And we're helping that work with creating the taxonomy. But that work of creating standards and then helping map out the different types of things that organizations need to do in order to implement AI security, that is really key, because each organization would not have the capacity to be able to do that, but government institutions can, and they can aggregate knowledge and information from startups like us or other companies or other nations, and then create these standards that can be referenced by all these organizations.
Awesome. And then, yeah, I mean, I believe it said 2023 was kind of the year that, generative AI burst onto the scene. 2024 is likely going to be the year when, actual deployments start to happen, where this kind of, starts to get implemented across, so a lot of important workflows, a lot of important processes, and kind of, hopefully provides, a huge productivity lift, a huge efficiency lift. Looking ahead, kind of, what do you see as some of the next great innovations within this AI security space? Whether that's whether it relates to AI or is kind of, something else entirely, kind of where do you see this, the landscape moving?
I think a key theme here is automation. We've been talking with so a lot of our customers, they are aware of this problem of AI security, AI risk, but what they're doing today is very manual. They essentially throw an army of AI talent to manually probe the model to see what kind of outcomes they're going to get, or just have a collection of prompts to test out how the models and applications are going to behave. And that is obviously good to do than not doing anything. But one, it's extremely time consuming. Two, it's oftentimes not exhaustive and doesn't map to different standards that we talked about earlier. Also, it's a huge opportunity cost when you have these talented and oftentimes expensive AI researchers and engineers. You'd rather want them to build applications, new applications, than to test existing models or protect existing models. So this is where we need to have a automation in how we do AI security and AI risk management. And so the big theme here that organizations would face in 2024 is, okay, so I was only working on this one POC application, but I want to go from like 1 to 5 to 10 to 100. I want to enable my organization to have a lot of AI applications. Do I keep this manual process or do I go automated? And solving that obviously requires, it's a technically challenging problem. And this is the type of problem that we're tackling at Robust Intelligence. But again, the types of like automated testing, automated red teaming, and AI firewall to protect these vulnerabilities in real time. These are the types of automatic capabilities that enterprises very much need on top of the current set of practices that they're doing today.
Awesome. Yeah, well, Kojin, thank you so much for your time today. I really enjoyed
No,
the conversation.
thank you.